Whew. This is a tough one, y'all. This is a tough one. Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for die-hard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and welcome to the new viewers and the returning die-hard subs to the channel. We do weekly interviews here and provide analysis on the latest Bengals breaking news. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And if you want to know how to subscribe, there's a button below this video. And we also provide a link in the video description. So if you're looking for that, it should be there. New Stripe City is proud to announce that our channel has partnered with Fanatics, an NFL licensed merchandiser for NFL.com and Bengals.com as well. Through Fanatics, you can buy men's and women's and kids' Bengals apparel and jerseys, and also help grow our channel through using the links in our video description. When you do that, it truly helps grow the channel, and we did this because it allows Bengals fans to not only enjoy our content, but also get top-tier authentic Bengals merchandise. So if you're looking to get a new Burrow or T. Higgins jersey or even a fresh hoodie or a hat, click on the link in our description. And when you do that, it helps support the channel. What's up, man? It's Ace Boogie. This is, I don't know, bro. Like, welcome to the channel. Thank you guys for being here. Obviously, they need to start paying us to be Bengals fans with the stuff that we have to go through with this team. Just looking back on this game, like, I'm just going to put it on the coaching staff, bro. Like, honestly, this coaching staff is in over its head. They're clearly not ready to handle this situation. I mean, I could point to several things. Bad play calling, a lot of inexperience there. We talked about this, and I talked about this with some of my Philly YouTubers. We talked about what's going to be the difference between the experience of Doug Peterson and his staff versus Zach Taylor and the Bengals. And like Curtis L. is saying, the staff is holding them back. I think it's pretty obvious that this coaching staff is in over its head. Zach's not willing to relinquish the play calling, and he made several bad play calls, like especially in the first half. Bounced back in the second half, but still, just the way that they handled this game was just mind-boggling. It really was mind-boggling. And honestly, like, the Eagles were completely decimated. And still, because they were better coached, they almost came out of this game with a victory. The only reason that they didn't was because they had a miscue on their offensive line. Was this an upset? According to, I think, Vegas, yeah, it would be an upset. I don't know what. I think the Eagles were favored by 4, but this isn't something to brag about. Like, 0-2-1 is not anything to brag about because the Bengals, it seems the last 3 games have been hurt by this coaching staff. And there were several plays to me that stuck out in terms of that. But when you look at the past 3 games, what's going on? Like this Ravens fan is in here saying, we settled for way too many field goals. There was no aggressiveness. You know, how do you take a punt and just say, we're going to take the tie? Like, what? Who takes a tie? Like, why would you just, like, you're not even going to try to win the game. You're just going to take the tie. Okay. So then the other thing is this staff, a lot of people who knew Zach Taylor from Cincinnati, because he obviously coached UC, for those who didn't know, there's a lot of things that we're seeing now in his tenure with the Bengals that we saw kind of in his tenure with UC, right? He was offensive coordinator there. He was not good at play calling. And he's never really had a opportunity to actually call plays in the NFL, and it's shown. And for me, I think the solution has to be, I don't know what the solution is on the staff, honestly, but this play calling stuff needs to go to either the offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan, or something needs to change. But then you also look at the defense with Lou Anarumo, and there were several questionable decisions that were made in this game. There wasn't really a blitz that really came through. There wasn't there was so much switching up from man to zone. There was the blown coverage. You look at that drive where the Eagles are able to tie this game up. Just a lot of lapses there. Like the defense bounced back. Like I can't put any of this on the players. Like a lot of this stuff has to do with the scheme. It has to do with the coaching. And, a lot of people are going to say, it's the defensive coach, it's the offensive line coach. At the end of the day, these guys are on this staff because of Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor felt that these were his guys. These guys are making us lose games. And there's several things that just don't make sense for this team, how they're playing. And Joe Burrow cannot save Zach Taylor and this offensive line. He can't do it by himself. Joe once again had a good game. 31 of 44, 312 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But you have to, like, people are saying, at least we didn't lose. Yeah, that's cool. But what is that to really brag about? Like, how are we bragging on that? Like, the Eagles lost so many players in this game. This shouldn't even have been a game. And, yes, it's a tie, but there were so many inept things that happened in this game that I cannot look at this team with confidence and say that they're going to play as well as they should with this coaching staff. I think this team is better than this record indicates. That's just my observation. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that I'm a guru. I'm not saying that my opinion is more valuable or anything. I'm not saying that. But just from what I've seen, and I've been a guy who has tried to support this staff. We obviously went through the Marvin Lewis era. I still think that was the correct move to make by moving on from him. However, when this originally started and the Bengals started to look for a replacement, I wanted Eric Bieniemy. I didn't get Eric Bieniemy. That was fine. I was open to Zach Taylor. The Rams offense was good, but I was cautiously optimistic. And so, I didn't want to get down on the guy. I was one of the first people to say, Zach Taylor deserves another year with his own quarterback and his own players and his own system, right? And we're seeing it this year. But we're seeing a lot of the same problems that we saw last season from the offense. And with us having Joe Burrow, it's really just like a way better Andy Dalton. And I don't even want to call him Andy Dalton, but it's a way better quarterback with the same issues. The offensive line is horrible. I mean, Philadelphia had 8 sacks today. 8. And you can't really put that on just the players themselves because these guys picked these players. These guys went out in the offseason and decided who was going to be on this offensive line. And just watching Joe Burrow get crushed back there was it was painful to watch. It was painful to watch. And when he's not getting Joe Burrow killed by basically enabling an offensive line coach that really has struggled in terms of bringing together this offensive line, he essentially does him no favors by the play calls. Like, they're not on the same page. Like, when Joe Burrow gets time in the pocket, sure, they can establish something there and they can make plays. But Joe Burrow can't do this all by himself. He can't be the offensive coordinator. He can't be the offensive line. He can't be the play caller. Like, he can't do all of that. He can't. So, I think that if this staff cannot turn it around, it's probably time for a new staff. I know people are going to say, this is just 3 games. And yeah, I'm not saying like fire Zach today or tomorrow, but I think when you look at the end of the season and you look at certain games like this one, like, these are games you have to win. You can't lose these games. You really can't lose these games, especially when you have teams like the Ravens coming up. You got the Browns again. You got the Steelers coming in. Like, you can't win games like that. Those teams, those staffs know how to win games. At the end of the day, you have to win games in this league, right? And someone said AJ is not looking like AJ. AJ can't really look like AJ if you don't target him until the second half. Like, I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy, but 5 receptions, I believe, on 6 targets. That's not, 5 receptions for 36 yards. He did what he was supposed to do, but why is he only getting 6 targets? You know? And to just put things in perspective, T. Higgins had a hell of a game. T. Higgins played well, right? But T. Higgins had more targets than AJ. He had 5 receptions for 40 yards and 2 touchdowns. The only thing that really separates those two is that, T. Higgins had the 2 touchdowns. And AJ Green caught more of his actual targets than T. Higgins did. But T is balling. Like, I love seeing T in there. I was happy that the Bengals just went ahead and said, we're sitting John Ross down in this game. Yeah, I don't blame him. I don't blame him. And then, they also put in Auden Tate. I like that they did that. Mike Thomas was in the game. We barely really saw him. He had 2 receptions on 2 targets, so he caught everything. They can't establish the run with this team, and we saw that last year. And that's why I say it's a lot about this staff. And some people are going to say, hey, this has only been 3 games. No, it hasn't. This has not been 3 games that we've seen from this staff. This has been 19. Like, this is not a new staff. This is, essentially everyone that we had from last year, for the most part, in key positions on the staff, is what we have. And what we have is essentially the same of what we had from last year. A lot of inconsistency, guys over their head, no good decisions being made. And that's the thing. Like, some people thought, like, oh, you guys just want Marvin out just because of that. I don't care who it is. Like, whoever you put back there, if they're making the same mistakes, and I'd even go out on a limb to say Marvin Lewis would have this team playing a lot better. And it's crazy to say that, but I think that the Bengals would at least have a win. Do you guys agree? Like, Marvin at least probably has a win by now. And so it wasn't wrong to walk away from Marvin. It wasn't wrong to look into a new direction. But when this new direction isn't working, then it's time to evaluate everything once we get to close to the end of the season and see. And they're not going to fire Zach Taylor. He's going to get a full season. But, I don't know if this front office can trust and believe in what this guy has done so far. And, it may be that Zach is just getting this opportunity before he was ready for it. When you look at the Lane Kiffins and some of the guys who came along that were young, they may have gone through this. I don't know. I'm not a fan of those teams, but we've kind of seen this before, where guys that are young get in and they're kind of over their heads. Like, there's no way that you can go against a guy like an Andy Reid and some of the coaches that we have in this division and make those mistakes. We aren't a team that has a wealth of talent or a wealth of luck or whatever, what so you have it when it comes to these areas. So when you got to win, you got to sit on it. You have to sit on it. And yeah, definitely shout out to Tyler Boyd, 10 receptions for 125 yards on 13 targets. He obviously was the guy on offense for sure. And then there's just certain things that just have me scratching my head. Drew Sample had a hell of a game. The last game, he gets 1 target. It's just, I don't know what the game plan is. I'm not privy to it. I'm not going to ask players what the game plan was. That's not my role, right? The defense bounced back in this game. I have to take my hats off for them. They definitely bounced back outside of a play that was called, blown coverage. Who knows who that's on? But there were still questionable things that happened. But the defense, I had to take my hat off to them for bouncing back against the Eagles. But a lot of this stuff, man, it's just kind of mind-boggling. I'm just looking into some of the insights from this game. And, Miles Sanders goes over 100 yards. It was just a weird game. The end of the half defense, was definitely pure cheeks. Fred Johnson, it seemed that they benched Fred Johnson for Billy Price, and then Billy Price goes out and gets a holding call. So I don't know, man. I have to look at what PFF grades these guys as. I'm not going to use that as the sole source. Obviously, we can use Football Outsiders and DVOA and all of that stuff, but bro, the self-inflicted stuff, this is typical Bengals. You got to give Philly, I mean, I know they're going through it too. To lose a game that way off of a holding call was very, very Bengal-esque, I'd probably say. Uh, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm hating, bro, but that wasn't a win for me. A tie isn't a win for me. Uh, you know, I feel like both teams took an L there. Especially when you're 0-2-1. I don't know what that means. I can't really get on board with 0-2-1 just because of the schedule that we have remaining. Now, if we were, maybe 1-1, yeah, I could get on board with that. But 0-2-1, nah, I can't get on board with that. I can't. Especially with the schedule that we have remaining. It's just gonna be a tough one for them to grind it out. And we got Jacksonville coming up, right? And Jacksonville is another trap game. It's another trap game. It's another game that is going to define this season. Yeah, Brian White, yes. Brian White says it means 0-3 for Rio. Yeah, a tie isn't a win. A tie is not a win. Let's look at the AFC since let me take a look at the standings. So give me 1 second. If someone I don't think that this is a playoff team. I don't. I thought that we had a chance. I think that we would have a chance without this staff. But with the staff, no. Not in my opinion, at least. Let's see if we can get this pulled up. So we're going to try to pull this up overall. Defense was great. And I mean, it's no point in me even pulling it up overall right now because obviously all the games haven't even finished. But let's just look at the conference right now, right? Carson Wentz definitely had a tough game, man. I wonder what Philly's going to do over there. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the answer, like a lot of their fan base has said as well. He came in and did a lot of Wildcat stuff there. Yeah, man, the Jags are better than us right now. They're 1-2-0. They're 1-2-0. So, going against them, you got the Dolphins that are 1-2 now. I mean, I don't see that as to our benefit. You have some 0-3 teams. Houston is the first one in the AFC to 0-3. But we'll have to see, man. We'll have to see. I think that Felipe makes a great point. A lot of people have talked about this. They spent too much money on defense and nothing on the O-line. And, a lot of that, from where we understand, it seems like the coaching staff was having some impact on there. Now, I don't know, whether the coaching staff influenced Duke, who influenced what, whether it was a thing of them working together. But nah, bro. So we'll have to see. But upcoming games, I ran through them earlier. I told you guys, doesn't look good. Especially with that stretch of tough games. You can't beat a team like Pittsburgh with that coaching staff. Like, even if you come and play Pittsburgh tough, right? They're going to find a way to win. They did it today. They went against Houston. They were down to Houston. They found a way to win. And that's what you have to do. You have to find a way to win. This coaching staff cannot find a way to win. They can't. Thank you for the donation, Jigsaw, for $5. What do you think about 21 seconds in a timeout and in the fourth and a kneel? Personally, to me, they should have tried for a field goal mark and marked it up. Yeah, I touched on that earlier. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, that just does not send the right message. Like, if we're going to end in a tie anyway, let's go out there and try to get a win. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, Joe Burrow throws an interception on a Hail Mary where the guy's probably not going to run it back anyway. Like, at least take a chance to go out there and at least try to get in the field goal range. I mean, obviously, Fat Randy's probably not going to make it, but at least the optics of it look like you tried to win. Zach Taylor's record, Dr. Professor. Appreciate that comment, bro. And thank you to everybody that came through on the Flick Chat. I appreciate you for working with me. I had a busy day today. I was watching the game from my phone as well. But my daughter also started volleyball today, so I was at practice while this was going on, and I was watching everything. But yeah, appreciate you guys for coming through over there. If you haven't checked it out, please be sure to check out the Flick Chat. But Zach Taylor's record as a head coach, 2-16-1. That's pretty brutal. That's pretty brutal. So I don't know like how long these guys are gonna really buy into the whole Zach Taylor experiment if this continues to happen. And it's not just on him, but a lot of his staff is really a lot of his staff, you guys saw it. So no, I have not caught the Joe Burrow press conference. I'm gonna have to check it out. But Zach Taylor's probably gonna stay here, guys. Like he's probably still gonna be the coach, but we'll have to see. Yeah, I feel bad for Burrow too. Like this isn't something that he's used to, and I don't know if it's this team. I don't know if it's the ownership that helps put this out here, but there just seems to be an ineptitude when it comes to the Bengals. Like maybe it's Zach. I don't know what it is. It's just they just find a way to blow something. They just find a way to blow something. And obviously, I think Zach Taylor is going to stay, but they're going to have to figure this thing out. And the more that it takes for this to happen, the more the chance that my guy AJ could possibly be gone. I'm not saying that I've talked to him. I have not at all. So don't take that and run with it. But, essentially, why would someone in his stage of his career want to stay here for a rebuild where obviously it doesn't look like we're going to actually win much this season? So another donation from my man, Rob, longtime subscriber. He says, come on, 2020 was never about winning, be realistic. I'm not saying that this team was going to go out and, just make the playoffs as a lock or anything like that. I just thought this team could fight and be better. I mean, I think to me, what it really comes down to, yes, we can sit here and say that, like, oh, it's Joe Burrow. We shouldn't have been trying to win or anything like that. And that's cool. But these were winnable games, Rob. I know you're my guy, but these were winnable games, bro. And I can't excuse that. I can't look at these games and, some people are going to say, oh, like, you're a homer and this and that. No, like, look at all three of these last games. What game weren't the Bengals in? It's not like they were being blown out. It's not like there was any moment like if it was 30-3 and we come back and, it ends up 30-16 or something like that in some of these games, then fine. I'm cool with that, right? You can't tell me this team wasn't good enough to beat the Chargers because I don't know. Is that bias? Like the Chargers fans came into my comments on the video after the game saying that they should have lost the game. That means the Chargers should have lost the game. That means we should have won the game. All right. Week 2, the Cleveland Browns. We are a Tyler Boyd possibly dropped touchdown away from another victory. We only lost that game by one score. Like a lot of these games weren't really games that we were out of. Like I can't even say that we were out of them. This game, we should have won this game. Like Philadelphia is not good either. Like not only are we not, winners, but they aren't winners either. Like, so to me, like it's different if we're playing Baltimore, right? Baltimore beats out on us. That's expected. I'm not expecting us to beat Baltimore. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm not expecting us to beat Pittsburgh. I expect us to at least get one win against them. I never expected us to sweep them. The Browns, I expected us to split with the Browns. So, like, to me, yeah, I get it. Like, I'm not expecting the Bengals to go 11-5. I think that this team is talented enough, especially with Joe Burrow and what they have around them, to at least be an 8-8 team. And that's not asking much. Like 8-8 doesn't really guarantee the playoffs. If you get lucky, you boost to 9-7, sure. But to me, like even 7-9 should be attainable for this team or something. But to lose games like that is just frustrating because they're games that you had. It's one thing to not be able to seal the deal. It's one thing to just be a bad team that's in a rebuilding phase that's just not ready for the moment. This team can win now. I literally believe that. I don't think that. I know that the offensive line is bad, but the coaching staff is also bad. Like if we had, let's just say for instance, just playing devil's advocate, if Andy Reid were calling the plays for this team, I think we'd probably be possibly undefeated now. Maybe 2-1 at worst. Like there's so many things that play with this team. It's just like, man. So we'll see what happens, but I just don't have enough trust in this staff to feel like this is going to end well. And yeah, you might not win too many games this season, but what happens when Joe Burrow goes down for the season for an injury because this staff is just too inept to make key replacements or make trades for offensive linemen to keep him from getting wrecked? Like, come on, man. Like, I can't support that. Like, I really can't. I can't make excuses for these guys because Joe Burrow's the only thing holding this thing together. If Joe Burrow wasn't starting on this team, it's an 0-16 probably team just because the next quarterback that you have, Ryan Finley, is probably going to get murdered back there in these circumstances. And then if he's not getting murdered, then he's going to have bad play calling. So it just for me, like when you can't take games that you should win and seal the deal on them, that falls on the staff, man. And when I look at these first 3 games, that's what I see. Now, you can go to every one of my reaction videos. You will find one constant thing. I will talk about play calling from Zach Taylor. I will. Like, I might touch on it a little bit. Like last week, it was probably more so about the defense, Lou Anarumu and stuff like that. But when I talk about Jim Turner, when I talk about the bad play calling, when I talk about certain things that the staff is doing in terms of making adjustments and stuff like that, no. Should have stuck with Dalton? Nah. I mean, Dalton, it's probably the same situation that we're in now. But, the reason that you needed to move on from Dalton was because you needed everything around Dalton to be perfect. As you can see, everything around Burrow is not perfect, but he's still able to throw for 300 yards and have, great plays and not really turn the ball over. Like a lot of these games, you talk about those, how close they were. I don't think that they're as close if Dalton is playing and, he has some turnovers. I felt like Dalton is still early in both of their careers, but Joe Burrow, technically outside of that crazy pitch that he did, really hasn't thrown an interception. And that was my only issue with Andy Dalton was, number one, he could never rise to the occasion, and then he turned the ball over a lot. And when he turned the ball over, it was in horrible situations. And so when you have an inept offense that's having 3 and outs and then you're turning the ball over, you just can't win football with that. Now, if he gets in for the Dallas Cowboys, who have an adequate offensive line, better play calling, better head coach, better defense, yeah, Andy Dalton's going to look decent, but they're still not going to put Andy Dalton in over Dak. Like these guys at the Cowboys aren't even paying Dak. So just imagine what it would be like if it came to him. So another donation from Jigsaw again for the 5. Appreciate that, bro. He says that he wants to give Zach one more season. Should have been a 2-score game. Well, yeah, man. I just let's not even talk about Andy Dalton and all of that. This is a new era. We don't want to talk about Dalton and Marvin. There's always going to be that comparison, though, right? Because that was the prior regime. But Zach Taylor, all of these guys. And okay, I said we were going to stop talking about Dalton. Everyone wants to talk about 8-0 2015. Look at that team. Look at the coaching staff. You had 3 guys, 3 or 4 guys could possibly be head coaching candidates. Like, that's what you need for that. We don't have that in Cincinnati anymore, unfortunately. We don't have it. We don't have it anymore. So we have to see what happens. And we have 13 games left. But let's just be real. Like, let's stop talking about Dalton. And it's probably my fault because I think I brought him up. But I hate seeing the narrative out there like, oh, it wasn't Dalton and this and that. And I'm just going to be fair. Like, it's not even just Dalton. Like, Marvin Lewis, we should have fired him too. Like, we should have moved on from them. Like, I can't stare around and say, like, oh, because things that we've tried now with these new guys, we should have kept the old ones. No, because those old guys weren't really getting us where we needed to be as a team. We still came up short. At the end of the day, the results were the same. Those teams came up short, whether it's 2015, whether it's 2005, whether it's 2016, all of those teams came up short. They didn't get to where they should have been. USA Life Hacker, thanks for the $5 donation. It's just ridiculous that they've ran around the same offensive line and they thought it was okay. Yeah. I mean, we're all just like fans and people who analyze the game and watch things and have followed football for a while. Like, when you talk about Ohio fans, and not even just people from Ohio, because I know we have people from all over the country that watch the Bengals and stuff like that. But, Ohio is a football state. Like, we know certain things, like, more than the average fan would actually kind of know, I guess, in a sense. Like, you go to Florida, you go to Ohio, you go to Texas. I think those fans are somehow they have adequate knowledge when it comes to football as a whole. Now, I'm not saying that we're all just the only places in the United States that know that stuff, but like, we know what it's like to see a line that can block and that can't. And where you obviously, and especially when you're following football, you're looking at all of these guys around the league, you're looking at these defensive linemen, the fact that these guys are so much faster and athletic. And it's not just in Cincinnati where we have bad offensive lines, but it's obvious out there that there's issues with the offensive lines all around the league. And that's why pass rushers are getting paid so much. That's why teams are trying to get these linemen ready. But to really look at the last sample size and really go all the way back to 2015, right, 2016, and look at how that offensive line lost Andrew Whitworth, lost Kevin Zeitler, really did bad with Cedric Ogbuehi and Jake Fisher, and you saw what Bobby Hart was. You decided to keep him. You knew that this offensive line had problems, and the fact that you stuck with it, where, as Marvin Lewis said, the first thing Marvin Lewis said when he left, they need to fix that offensive line. They did not. And I don't know whether that has to do with upper management, because that's remained the same, or what. I'm not privy to any of that. But this has been a situation, and the Bengals have done this for a long time. They've tried to address it, right? We're not going to sit here and say that they haven't, because they have. They did try to draft Billy Price. It didn't work out. They did try to go out and get some guys. Cordy Glenn, they tried to trade there. If that didn't work out, they went out, they drafted Jonah Williams, but then he got hurt. It didn't work out. But this season, they really didn't do it in the offseason. I think it was because they were burnt on so many things and they had so many guys that they thought that they could trust. But there were guys like Warford that were out there. There were other guys that you could have drafted that could have come in and done some of these things. We kind of talk about Josh Jones, I believe. I think he was from Houston, the tackle. You can't tell me that he wouldn't have helped. Like, and I understand it. I get it. But when you have these holes and you haven't been consistent on filling them, whether it's through the draft, whether it's through free agency, you got to throw so many darts that one sticks, right? And you can't really just focus on, oh, we believe in this staff, they're going to get the best out of these guys. Some of these guys just can't bring it. Some of these guys just aren't a fit. Some of these guys just aren't it. They're not bad, but and when I say they're not bad, I'm talking about like Bobby Hart. Like, a lot of people give Bobby Hart so much, they blame him. Bobby Hart is probably an average NFL tackle. The only thing is he's average. He's going to give up sacks. He's going to have bad games. And then when you put him next to another guy that's below average, or you put him on a line of guys that are below average in experience, you're going to have a disastrous line. You've got to go out and make a trade with whoever it is. I hear a lot of people saying, the NFL, some people are kind of throwing these guys bail because they're like, no one's trading tackles and this and that. Like, if Trent Williams can get traded in the offseason, somebody's trading tackles. Like, you can't tell me, like, and obviously this isn't realistic, But if you just hopped on the phone with anybody and said, I got a second round draft pick for you for your right tackle or a first round draft pick for your right tackle, somebody's going to make that trade. Like somebody's making it because they actually have some better depth at offensive line, or they have some better guys that can come in, or they have a better scheme that can help them in those areas. And so, to not even, they traded for Cordy Glenn. That was one that they found. So like to not even, I don't know if they're trying to or not, because we're not privy to what phone calls are being made or what's happening, but you have to do something. You have to do something with this offensive line because it's just holding everything back. The scheme isn't working. It's just like we saw last season when Joe Mixon was struggling on the ground. They can't marry that offensive line scheme with the run and the pass. It's again that we're seeing this. So before we get out of here, I'm going to answer a couple of questions. If you do a super chat, it'll guarantee it, but I'll answer, let's see, three last questions. So thank you, Mike Simeon, for a super chat, my friend. He says, is the O-line is not sorry in pass protection. They just can't open any holes for Mixon. Yeah, I agree. I think it's the scheme though. Like, I don't know why it's so weird in terms of the differences between the two. Like, oh, you're saying that they're not only sorry. I think you're trying to say that they're not only sorry in pass protection, they're also sorry in run protection. Yeah, they are. Giving up all those sacks, no holes for Mixon. It's just bad. And I think that it's scheme and talent related. I think it's a combination of bad scheme, bad talent. You're asking guys to do stuff that they really can't do. And you're hoping that you can just have Joe Burrow, get the ball out faster. And look, I'm not a coach. I'm not any of that. But you can't work like Joe Burrow is out here trying to do what he can with it, and it's not working. It's not. So whether you trade Ross, you do what you have to do, bring somebody else in, man. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is that they have to do, but got to get a lineman in. I just don't know. I don't know what they really have backed themselves into a corner now where they really don't have a choice. They have to see what it is that they have and move with what they have. If it were me, I said this a couple of days ago on Twitter, or a Thursday night football game on Twitter, I'd be giving Jacksonville a call to see if they are even listening to offers for Cam Robinson, right? Cam Robinson lost his cool, got kicked out of the game. But when you look at Cam Robinson on Pro Football Focus, at least, it looks like he's playing pretty solid. So I don't know if they are doing a fire sale in Jacksonville where they are possibly getting rid of linemen or not. But I'd at least be calling people to see. And, yeah, you can't blame Mixon. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. And, this coaching staff decided to keep it around. They kept that offensive line. They did what they needed to do. But anyways, I feel like I'm repeating a lot of things. It looks like we have another one here from Cody Gunning. Do you think Willie Anderson would be a better offensive line coach than Zim Turner? And Brian Callahan should call offensive plays next week. So you guys all know that I had Big Willie on here. He felt that Jim Turner knows what he's doing a little bit. For some reason, I think that at minimum, Willie Anderson should be a consultant for this offensive line, right? When I had him on, he talked about how guys that he knew, former NFL players, Antonio Pierce, guys like that, got flown out to kind of do some work with certain linemen. Like, I think Willie's too busy right now with his foundation and everything that he has going, with working with the kids, and he loves that as his purpose. I think he'd want to be a consultant right now, at least starting off. But I think if he was willing to come in and be the offensive line coach, I would do it. But I think at minimum, he should be a consultant. Like, there's a lot of guys that get egos, and a lot of these coaches that have egos that, teach techniques a certain way. Somebody teaches it another way. But to me, guys that actually played in the league, and I don't know if Jim Turner played in the league. He doesn't look like a guy that played in the league. But those guys have experience with dealing with this stuff. I mean, all you have to do is jump on Twitter and see Big Willie like breaking stuff down. right? And he understands that because he's played in this division, he's been here and all of that. Like, yeah, I would definitely give him a shot. I think at the least you make him a consultant, and I don't think that you have to make it rain on him in terms of a salary to do that. You know, it may be that the Bengals don't want to pay for flights and stuff like that, but honestly, at this point, you know, a flight versus having to go out and possibly pay a premium tackle to come here, that's a cheap price to pay for that. So I can't say what would happen. You know, Billy kind of alluded to trying to do that before. Like some people reached out to him on the Marvin staff for help, and then he said that they said no, we're good over here. So, you know, obviously they're not good over there, and they need some help. So I think Willie Anderson would be a great addition, at least as a consultant for that Bengals offensive line. And Brian Callahan, yeah, I think that Brian Callahan should call plays. Yeah, I think so. I think Brian Callahan should definitely call plays for sure. I think it's just too much on Zach's plate as a young head coach in this league to be doing all of that stuff. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys for coming here and dropping off some stuff. This was my recap of the game, the reaction. I think me and Zim will be on later, possibly today around 8:30. So stay tuned for that. We're going to go ahead and try to get the Orange is the New Black episode out tonight. If not, if you don't see it tonight, it may not be coming, but it's tentative for 8:30. So be on the lookout for that. But there are a lot of games going on, so we'll see what happens. Looks like we have another last super chat before I get up out of here. T. Cosby says that I think that the coaches prioritize their scheme over the players' abilities. What do you think? I think that that's true. I think that that's very true. Oh, yeah, we're all still Bengals fans, Josh. But I think that that's very true. They kind of get stuck in they want to run their scheme versus having the right players to run their scheme and making their schemes more friendly to the actual players. Like build your scheme based around your players, just like you did with Joe Burrow. You want to bring in LSU plays for him? Do the same with the offensive line. Play to their strengths. Play to what makes this offense go. And so yeah. I'm about to get out of here. You know, this was definitely therapeutic because I was very upset and frustrated after this game. But yeah, let's get at least 100 likes for Who Dey Nation for sure. And yeah, definitely follow New Stripe City on Flick. We had it going there. Make sure you check out Zim stuff on Zim_Who Dey. But that is going to wrap things up. The Cincinnati Bengals are now 0-2-1. And this has been New Stripe City. As usual, I'll leave you guys with a Who Dey all day, every day, especially on Sunday.